Alrighty, guys, it's Eric with the office. Today we have our DocuSign 201 course. I'm going to go through and show you guys how to create templates today, as well as how to use the checklist within Command to load all of the required compliance paperwork. So today we have a lot to cover, so I'm going to kind of jump into it. Of course, I am at agent.kw.com, and I'm going to log into my Command account, and we're going to start with a fresh opportunity. I'm not going to cover too much detail on how to create a contact or how to all the features of the opportunity, just because that is covered in our DocuSign 101 course. So since I'm talking about those classes real quick, let me just jump on the resources and then we'll go into the material for class today. So of course, I'm at agent.kw.com to access Command. I do have our online calendar with all of our classes, including our DocuSign 201 here. You can subscribe to this calendar. It's at KWTC.com, and you can choose whether you want to subscribe to all the calendars of the office or simply, the tech ones or just Ignite or whatever the case is. So that's at KWTC.com. And if you click on the actual events, you will get the Zoom links. So if you ever can't find the Zoom links for any one of our classes, they're available at KWTC.com, as well as on Danny's daily email when he sends that out. So that's that. A lot of the materials that we're going to cover today are also covered by Scott Leroy Marketing. They are our partner when it comes to technology. They also offer courses as well as classes online, and they have a ton of resources, a support line, as well as email support. So if you ever need help when the office is not available or closed or whatever the case is, you can go to scottleroymarketing.com. Our login for our office is 738, which is our market center number. So if you just type in 738, you'll gain access to all of their resources on their site, as well as their webinar link, which is under Agent Resources. And then you can see their training calendar here, as well as all their pre-recorded courses. I'm going to be referring to a lot of our other classes that I've had, like DocuSign 101, for instance, specifically in this class. This class will move a little bit quicker. It's a little bit more advanced. So if you have not seen DocuSign or been in DocuSign, I'd highly recommend going to YouTube, searching Keller Williams Tampa Central, and you'll be able to see all of the courses that we have had here at the office that I've put on our YouTube channel. So if you click on Keller Williams Tampa Central, you'll see that we have all of our other classes that I've covered here since I've been back in October. So DocuSign 101 is the one that I am going to be referring to. If you need a little bit more detail or take a little bit, just to kind of break it down a little slower. We also have Opportunities 101 that covers all of the features within the Opportunity Portal, as well as database management. And we also have a How to Get Paid with a Compliance 101. So today we're not going to cover any of the compliance or DocuSign 101 items, but we're going to dive into the 201. Like I said, we're going to do some templates today, as well as show you guys how to create a template with a PDF. So let's go ahead and dive in. So I'm at agent.kw.com. I'm going to go ahead and sign in under me. And we are at the Command home base here, the home page, and we're going to be working out of contacts as well as opportunities. I'm not going to create a contact today. I have a contact that I created in DocuSign 101 that I'm going to be using for today's class. I do have some notes that like I said, I got from Scott Leroy Marketing. They have great resources, as well as courses on their site that cover Command as a whole. This class will be more specific to our documents and our stuff here at the office. But if you need just more materials or more resources or more classes, feel free to snag these notes that I just put in the chat. If you're watching this recorded, I will definitely put this in the description of the video, so no worries. You'll also get the link to the notes, as well as the link to our videos here on our YouTube channel. So let's go ahead and dive in. So to create an opportunity, you must have the contact first. So step one, of course, is to create the contact. And then step two, within that contact, you're going to create your opportunity. So I put the notes in there from Scott Leroy. They also have the 10 steps on how to create an opportunity. I put those in the chat as well. Those will just simply cover how to create and how to get from step 1 to step 10 of how to create an opportunity. It's right here, DocuSign steps. You can go ahead and also just view those steps. They have some pictures in there for you, as well as just step-by-step instructions on how to create an opportunity. So going back to Command, I'm going to go to my database here under contacts. If you're not familiar with Command yet, or you're just still learning, you're going to click on the icon here. Or if you don't know what the icons mean, you can also click on the KW on the left-hand side, and it will expand the menu for you. So we're going to work out of contacts today, as well as opportunities. So we're going to start at contacts. And while this loads, we're going to look for a contact that I had created last class, which was Arya Stark. So if you're a Game of Thrones fan, you'll know who that is. So we're going to look for Arya Stark. She is actually, where am I? Oh, I had to switch accounts. Let's switch accounts. So here is Arya Stark. We are going to use her as the example for today. So as you can see here, this is the contact card. You can see all the information that has to do with your contacts. Again, if you have not watched DocuSign 101, that course will show you how to create a contact, as well as how to create the opportunity from scratch. With today's course, I'm just going to pull up my current contact, which is Arya Stark here. And then you can see here under opportunities that I have an opportunity that I created in our DocuSign 101 course. So this was the opportunity that I created during that course. I personally prefer to create opportunities from the contact card, just because you can see if you've created the opportunity already, or you can also see how many opportunities that contact actually has. You're more than welcome to create the opportunity straight from the opportunities applet. Same idea, works the same way, except you will not see all of the opportunities that may or may not exist for that specific contact. But you can do it either way. The rule still is the same. You will have had to create the contact before creating the opportunity. So I'm going to go back to Arya Stark's contact card, and we're going to go here, and I'm going to hit create opportunity. So create opportunity. I'm actually going to go ahead and create this one under my team here. If you are on a team, it kind of works the same way if you're not on a team. So if I wanted to not use the team, I would simply just hit the X here, and I would remove the team. I'm not going to do that today, simply because this contact is in my team portal, which means I have to create it under my team profile. If you are an individual agent and not a team, it'll work the exact same way, except under team here, it will be blank for you. But we're going to cover some of the required fields here. So there are a ton of options and a ton of features that you can use within the opportunity section. In today's course, I'm not going to cover those features. I'm simply going to cover the required fields that we're going to focus on. And those fields are going to be, of course, the opportunity type, the contact name, the opportunity name here, and then you also have to put in your commission rate. And then we'll work our way down here. So of course, since I'm in the contact card, it preloaded my contact here for me. You have the co-seller, in this case, it says seller, but I'm going to actually select buyer. So that'll then turn into buyer, but the same is true for both. You know, you can have two sellers, two buyers, and so on. So for today, I'm only going to have one seller, but if you had a person that was linked to this contact, you can of course search here, but you will have had to connect them under the documents, under the contact section beforehand. All right, so we have our contact selected, we have our opportunity type, and we also have the opportunity name. One thing that the office recommends you guys do is add the property address to the opportunity name. The reason we make you guys do that is because when we receive information about your property, we're not going to know your contact's name, unfortunately. We'll probably get a letter with the property address or a closing disclosure with the property address. So always go ahead and add the property address here under the opportunity name. It just helps the office find your opportunity, as well as it just keeps things moving forward. And it'll also help, if it's a listing, it'll help Marta when she creates your DAs, your disbursement authorizations. So property address, client name, and type is fine. That works great. You can organize your opportunities by tag, of course, seller, buyers, family members, coworkers, so on. Commission rate, we're just going to put 3% here, but of course, this would come from the MLS or whatever you're getting paid. This can be edited later. So if you get, negotiated down to 2.5, or if you started at 2.5 and you work your way up to 3%, you can always come back to the opportunity details and you can update this number. So no worries there. As far as phases, I'm not going to cover that today, but this is a part of the pipeline. So you can move this opportunity through a pipeline through all the different phases. For today, we're just going to make this active and we're going to say negotiations just because we are creating an offer today. So I've done all my required fields and I'm going to go ahead and click create. Now you'll see here that my most current opportunity is going to be listed at the top here, and then it'll date them for you. So we have those there. I'm going to go ahead and click on the opportunity name here. And again, in our other DocuSign 101 course, as well as the Compliance 101 course, I go through the important tabs and what they mean and how they work. For today, I'm just going to do one quick thing. I'm going to also add the property address here on the property. Again, it helps the office find your opportunity, as well as helps when we're creating your DA. So I'm just going to go ahead and use my test address here. Believe it or not, 123 Main Street does exist in Florida. So we're going to go ahead and use that one as the example. And then we're just going to go ahead and tab over. Our address is here. I'm going to go ahead and click save. So now our address has been added under property, as well as the opportunity name. Again, if you needed to edit any information, including that 3% that we put earlier, you would just click on the pencil here and it'll allow you to edit not only the opportunity name, but as well as the percentage that you put there. All the information plugged in here will also make its way over to DocuSign. So when you're entering this in, it's to your benefit to make sure that you plug in all the information that can go here, because this will make its way over to your contract and all your preloaded documents in DocuSign. So for today, I'm going to go ahead and click on Documents. And there are a couple of things in the Documents tab that are super important at this phase. So of course, you can create your, you start your transaction. This will take you to DocuSign for your documents to send them off for signatures. Before you do that though, you want to pick a checklist. There are two reasons you're going to want to pick a checklist. The first reason is going to be because you want to make sure that you have all the required documents, or you know what your type of property you're dealing with. This will give you an idea of what's required from a compliance perspective. It will also preload the documents, some of the required documents, into your DocuSign for you, which means that you won't have to go to DocuSign and filter through all the documents that are in there to find your contract or your listing agreement, whatever type of opportunity you're dealing with. If you select the checklist first, it will preload those documents into DocuSign for you. So what I mean with that is I'm going to go ahead and click on pick a checklist. It's going to give me some options. So the office here, me and along with the broker, have decided what is required for each one of these categories. Each category does have its own requirements, so we're going to make sure to select accordingly. Once you select, you can go back and forth and you can say, okay, well, I chose residential, but it's actually new construction, so you can go back and forth. You just want to make sure to choose the one that matches your property type. So for today's example, I'm going to go ahead and choose residential. And then you'll see here that will load some folders here on the left-hand side, as well as give me some other options here in the center of the screen. Under the under contract folder is where the checklist is going to be. So here is where you can sort this checklist by the columns here. It kind of works like an Excel sheet. So under requirements, you can click here and it will sort by the required documents. So you'll see here that some documents are required, some are conditional, and some are optional all the way at the bottom. The reason that they're conditional to optional is because depending on the property, you may need a lead-based paint, you may need an HOA, you may need a CDD. Not every property is going to require all the documents. So one thing I will say here, I'm going to go ahead and sort by document. If you see here that the document has a turquoise DS for DocuSign, that means that when you create your opportunity, your room, when we click on start a transaction, it is going to load this required document for you as the agent, so you no longer have to search for it. So it benefits you to use the checklist as well as look through here, and you'll see that the majority of these forms that are required are going to be loaded for you. That's what that turquoise step means. So I hope that makes sense. I'm going to go ahead and start my transaction now. If you are in the, we here use DocuSign. If you are a .loop user, you can still use .loop with Command as long as you have an upgraded account. And what I mean with that is that means that you are paying for .loop separately. If you have an upgraded .loop account under settings here, you can connect your .loop account and you can use .loop for signatures. For today's class, as part of the agents that are come here, we use DocuSign. If you need to book an appointment with me to go over .loop or specifics on that, I'm more than happy to do that. Just send me an email at mctt738@kw.com and we'll book an appointment and we'll look into .loop. for that purpose, when I click here, you're going to see that I have both options, but DocuSign is the primary one that you should have here. If you don't have more than one system, it'll actually, once you click on start a transaction, it'll take you straight to DocuSign. So no worries if you don't see .loop, you're not supposed to see .loop. I just have that there for training purposes. You should only see DocuSign unless you have an upgraded account or you've been with Keller Williams for a long time and you're paying for that separately. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click on DocuSign. It's going to prompt the system to open up a new tab, and I'm going to have to log in. So I'm going to log in under my email here. While that loads, the one thing you'll remember when you're loading into DocuSign, I always like to remind the agents yourselves that when you're working in DocuSign, that means you're working with you and your clients. When you're working in Command out of the opportunity, that means you're working with you and the office. So that's how those two websites differ. DocuSign is between you and your client, and Command opportunities is where you work with yourself and the broker. So we're going to go back to DocuSign. Now you'll see here that some of the required documents that were on that checklist have now loaded for you here in DocuSign. So if you needed to add more documents, you would simply just go up here. Let's say you needed to add a lead-based paint or a seller's property disclosure, whatever the case is, you would just click here under add and you would click under DocuSign form. If you're uploading a PDF from your computer, you would of course click on a computer and upload the document. For today's purposes, we're going to do a couple of things. So let's start with the templates. So we've created our room, we've imported over our information, which means now any information that we typed into the details tab will show up on all these documents because these are interactive documents. In a little bit, I'll also show you guys the difference between a DocuSign form as well as a PDF and how when you send a document out to get signed, you're going to receive a signed PDF back. So you're always going to have the original document you're working with, and then you'll have a copy of that same document in PDF form, and it'll have a green logo with the word signed on there. All right, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to do a couple things here. So we're going to go ahead and click on My Docs because we're going to create a template using the as-is contract. So you're only going to have to do this every time you want to make a template. Once you create a template, you are going to simply click here on the document and you're going to hit Apply Template. But because I want to show you guys how to create the template, I'm not just going to click Apply. I'm actually going to show you how we do that. So we're going to, from the room, we're going to go here and we're going to click on My Docs. And then we're going to click on Forms. And you're going to see here that I have some templates that I've created from the past, even today as I was practicing for class. You can create templates using any form that is available within the DocuSign form section, okay? I'm going to go ahead and hit Create. I'm going to delete this one because I don't want to confuse myself. So you can see how you can delete forms or templates. You can edit templates. You can do all sorts of things within the template world. So you're all set there. For today's purposes, I'm going to go ahead and click on Create Form Template. And some of the reasons why you would want to create a template is, let's say you have a buyer that you're working with or an investor, and you're always doing a specific time frame when it comes to inspections, and he's a cash buyer, and you have all these options within the as-is contract or any contract that you're always having to go through and select individually. This is a great example on when you would want to use a template because you can basically select all those options and then plug them in every time you have to write an offer for that client, and you're all set. You can also do one for, let's say you want to do a template for a cash buyer, one for a finance buyer, one for a specific inspection period, whatever the case is, whatever the options are within the contract, you can create a template for each one of those scenarios and you can use them as you see fit. So we're going to go ahead and leave the document section here, for that's where the document's coming from. I'm going to go ahead and select my document by clicking here. So I'm going to go ahead and click Florida Association of Realtors, and I'm actually going to search for the as is. So once I type as is, you'll see that my document will pop up. I'm going to go ahead and click on the document and I'm going to click on use. And that'll take a second to load. While that's loading, one thing that I like to do is go change the template name. This is very important when you start creating multiple templates for the same document. That way you know what's going on. So for this one, I'm just going to put leave the name of the document, and I'm going to put cash offer as the name of the template. There we go. And we're going to hit save there. So that's saved. And then we're going to work our way through the form. So this section will work like you do when you're working with the document in the rooms specifically. You're going to go through the document and you're going to specifically decide what you want to edit. However, what you're putting in here is not a purchase price, because purchase price change per contract. What you're not putting in here is a property address, because that again changes per property. Things that you're putting in here are things that you use every single time. So if you're on the listing side and you're going to use a specific title company, then you would put that title information here. If you have a specific buyer who always likes to close on a specific date, then you would use that there. But let me see if I can find a really good example on when we would want to use what we would want to use here. So for instance, if you know that you have a buyer who always wants all the appliances, or you get sick of plugging in everything, you can plug in the appliances that go here. So like washer, dryer, a refrigerator, whatever the case is. So you can go ahead and plug those out if you're having to plug that in every single time that you create a contract, okay? The other thing you can do here is if you're doing a cash buyer, that means you're going to have to select one of these two options. In this case, since this is our cash offer, I'm going to go ahead and select here that this is our cash. This will be a cash transaction, no financing contingency. So I'm selecting that. And then I'm going to scroll down here and I'm going to say this buyer always asks the seller for $10,000 closing costs, right? So I would plug in the 10K closing costs, however you word it. There is specific wording for that, like prepaid, however you want to word it. So you're going to want to make sure to word it correctly. For today, for the lack of time, I'm just going to put 10K in closing costs, and we're going to move on. This is not going to get the logistics of everything. We're just kind of plugging and playing. So we're not going to get into technicalities of how to word things in today's class. And then the other thing I wanted to identify here is my inspection period. So for this specific cash buyer, he always wants a 7-day inspection period, or she. So I'm going to put 7 days there. All right, so that's that. And then you can go through the contract and select any other options that you know are not going to change no matter what the property is. And then we're going to go all the way to the bottom. And we're going to add, and we know that this person may use the appraisal contingency a lot. So we're going to pre-select that. He likes to use, he likes to buy properties that have a homeowners association. So that one's always one that's selected. So we know that we never are going to put an offer in on a property that does not have an HOA. And then let's say he always has a kickout clause. So we're going to select that one as well. And then the other thing that you can do here is if he has specific terms that he asks the seller, then you would plug those in here. But one thing that I like to plug in here is, of course, your name at the bottom here, because then you don't have to plug that in. It's just less work when you're plugging and playing on a Sunday evening, trying to put an offer together. So we have that. And then we're going to do, of course, Keller Williams, Tampa Central. And that's done. So now that we've gone through the contract in theory and plugged everything that we are redundantly having to plug into every offer, we can now hit save and close. So that's saving. And we're going to wait for this to load here in a second. And now we have our as is cash offer template right here that we can use immediately. I'll actually show you guys how we use this in the room that we created here right before we started the template. But one thing I like to mention here is, let's say that you wanted to create one for financing, a template for financing. All you simply have to do is click on the drop down here, click on copy, and it will leave everything else the same. And you can just go ahead in that section where we chose that this would be a cash offer. You would select, financing, the terms, and what type of financing, and then you can have a template for each one. So it's super easy to make multiple templates using the same documents once you've started things off. So I'm not going to go ahead and do that today, just because I want to show you guys how to use this template. And then I also want to show you how to create a template using a PDF. I think that will be the most valuable to you guys, because it takes you a long time to kind of add signature fields to PDFs, especially when it's like the seller's property disclosure. It can take a lot of time. So that will definitely save you some time. So since we've created our template, now I'm going to go back to rooms. And I'm going to find the room that we created for our contact August start. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on 123 Main Street. And we're on our details tab. We're going to go ahead and click on documents. Since we've created our document, I'm gonna go ahead and this is the as is contract here. I'm gonna right click and I can go ahead and add my template that we just created. So I'm gonna click here. And here's our as is contract template for our cash offer. And I'm gonna click apply. So click apply. And all I did was plug in the information that we just did in our template. I still need to make sure that the buyer's name is on here, that the property address is on here, that the purchase price is on here. So we're not done doing that. We still go through the same process of filling out the form, but now we've pre-filled out some of the fields. So now when I click on the document, you're gonna see that it's gonna have hopefully all the information that we plugged into the template, as well as the information that comes from the opportunities detail tab. Perfect. So you'll see here, it's brought over my contact's name from Command, which is why it's important to make sure you create the contact, create the opportunity, then start the transaction. It's brought over my property address. It hasn't brought over a price because I didn't put a price there. I just put the commission rate. So for this example, I'm just going to plug 300,000. And then we're going to scroll through and see if it's saved all our other options. So what I did here it is. So I selected cash. That's already selected for me. I would just have to plug the rest of these options here. And of course, if this specific buyer or investor had these specific options, we could have selected those in the template. If you want to go back and edit the template, it was right where we were earlier, where we hit that copy. You can go ahead and edit the template. Let's keep scrolling through here and see what other options. Here's our 10K closing costs. Is here, but let's say, oh, hey, I forgot to put costs on there. You can still add to it, which is great. So now we have closing costs on there. Again, there's specific verbiage that I would recommend you use here, but we're not going to cover that today. And then we're going to scroll down and we're going to keep looking for, I think the next one we did was our inspection period. So here's our 7-day inspection period. So this was brought over from that. If this changes for whatever reason, you're more than welcome, of course, to change it. We're going to scroll down to our addenda section and we have all of our fields selected. This is a great feature just because sometimes I'm one that I always see, like we always forget to check a certain one and then you have to go back and get initials signed because you forgot to check something. So this is a great time saver. So now all of our addendums that our investor always uses, or our buyers, if it's a VA, whatever the case is, you can use this to your advantage. And then the last but not least, we're going to scroll down. And there's our name and our market center. So typically, if you're one of those agents who likes to plug in your commission here, this is where I would plug in that 3% minus whatever the MLS fee is, because that does change per transaction. So let's say it's $295. You can still go ahead and plug that in. You don't have to type everything else out. Now we're going to click save, and we're going to hit close. Once that loads, our document's now ready to DocuSign. So now you would click here and you would go ahead and you would get it signed. You would hit the little pen here, create the envelope and send it off. I'm not going to do that because we do that in DocuSign 101. So I want to save some time because I do want to go over how to create a template for a PDF because I really feel you guys are going to love that. So that's how you would create that there. One thing that I do want to show you before we move on is, let's say you wanted to apply a template to a document that you don't have in the room, right? So let's say that it was like this KW disclosure here or another form. So what you're going to do is you're going to click on add and you're going to go to DocuSign rooms. And let me see if I have the other template. I think the other template that I have in there that I did not delete was the status form. But let me check. Okay, so here you go. It says in use. So you can't use that one. Let me select the Stellar documents just because I think the status change form has one. So once you select yes. So in this case, I'm going to use the status change form simply because I know that I have a template for that. If you don't have a template for the other documents, they're not going to pop up. For this specific document, I do have one. So that's why you're seeing here that it says none. But if you wanted to apply the template, you would simply click here and go down to template. And you can then add it to your room and it will bring over any typing that you did on that document. But that's how you would add a template that you've already created to a form that's not been added to your room yet. You would select the folder, look for the document, and then click on there. And then of course, in the drop-down, select the template that you want to use, and it will be named according to what you named it before. So that's how you use a template using a DocuSign document, an interactive document, okay? So I hope you guys are following me still. Now we're going to cover how to create a template using a PDF, which is what I'm most excited about. So let's go down and we're going to go ahead and click. First, we need to add our PDF to our room. So this is the example that agents always give me that they find super tedious, and they're like, God, I spend so much time, especially in today's market, getting signatures, and then the offer doesn't get accepted. So this will also save you time from that perspective. So the example that I'm going to use for my PDF is a seller's property disclosure. When you're on the buying side, you don't get to use one of these interactive forms, which means when you send that document over to your buyer, you, the agent, have to put each individual initial field as well as signature field on that 4-page document. So it can be very time consuming, and it can just be annoying. Sometimes there's a situation where the selling agent hasn't provided it, so you have to provide it as the buyer's agent. It gets really messy. So we're going to use that as the example today. So what we're saying is, I'm on the buying side. We're buying 123 Main Street. I downloaded the seller's property disclosure from the MLS, and now I'm going to use my template for PDFs to just get my signatures without having to spend too much time on it. So I'm going to go ahead and click add. I'm sorry, we're going to do one thing. We got to create the template first before we add it. So we're going to go ahead and click on your name or your initials, on your picture or your initials on the top right. And we're going to go to e-signature. While that loads, what we're basically going to do, we're going to create a template under the DocuSign account. This is the other side of DocuSign. This is where you come if you wanted to sign a document straight from your computer. You can upload it here without emailing it to yourself. This is where that happens. But we're going to go ahead and click on templates up here. And you can see here that I created one earlier before class. I wanted to make sure that we were good to go. So we're going to go ahead and click on new. And we're going to hit create template. It's going to load as if you were creating an envelope, because remember, the only way to edit PDFs in DocuSign is by creating an envelope, and then before sending it, you add your field. So we're basically doing that last step of the creating an envelope for the template. So we're going to go ahead and hit upload here, and I'm going to upload my PDF. I pre-downloaded my seller's property disclosure here, so that's my PDF. I've uploaded it. And in this scenario, I told you guys that I had downloaded this from the MLS and I'm working with a buyer. But to create a template, you have to think a little bit outside the box, in the sense that sometimes you're going to have one buyer, sometimes you're going to have two buyers. So when you're creating the template, just make sure you keep those kind of scenarios in mind. That way your template can be used in multiple situations, multiple scenarios, whatever that looks like. So for today, I'm going to upload my seller's property disclosure template, or my PDF. And you can see here that I have one role. So this role would be buyer 1. But like I said, what if I have 2 buyers? I want to go ahead and hit buyer 2. So I'm going to go here under role, and I'm going to add buyer 2. And the cool thing is you can use buyer 1 by themselves or buyer 2 within the same template. So it's really cool. So buyer 1, buyer 2, I've added my roles. And now I'm going to go down here and I can change the subject to my email. If I wanted to use it for this, if I'm only using this specific template for DocuSign, in this case, I'm just going to leave the name of the document. That way I know what it is. But this is the message to your clients, which means every time you use this document on its own, it will preload this section for you. I'm going to leave this blank because I'm going to attach other documents. So I don't need the verbiage. But if you're only using this template for one specific document, then you can, of course, pre-fill out the message to your clients, and you wouldn't have to type that part out either. But I'm not going to do that. I just left the email subject line as a seller's property disclosure, and then of course it says please DocuSign. So now we're going to go ahead and hit next. This is where we're going to actually set up our template. Now, if you've been in DocuSign, if you took DocuSign 101, this looks like when you're going to send the envelope out, and you have to literally go through here and add each field that needs to be filled out, okay? If you're on the buying side and we've downloaded this from the MLS, in theory, let's pretend that there's an address here. This has been selected. All of this yes, no, don't know should be pre-filled out, which means all we're adding here is the signature field as well as the initial fields. So as you can see up here, all these are yellow for buyer one. If I click on the drop down, buyer two is blue. This is simply for you to identify who is doing what, whether that's signing, initialing, or filling something out, whatever the template of that PDF is. So I'm going to go ahead and stick with buyer one for now so I don't get confused. And you're going to see here that I'm going to basically click and drag my forms over, my initial boxes. So there's that one, and we have it there. And I'm going to go through and add my initials for buyer one. I prefer to do buyer one all at once and then go back and do buyer two so I don't get confused. However, you can do it any way you like. So if you want to do per page and do both people and switch back and forth, you're more than welcome to do that. This PDF that I downloaded does have, this is my buyer spot, does have my contact name there just because I've used this before, but this should have the seller's name for this specific property. Then so we have your buy signature. We can use the name field here, which means it'll preload their name from your contact section. And then we're going to date it as date signed for buyer one. And now we're going to go all the way back up to the top. We're going to switch to buyer two. And we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to do initials. I'll show you one trick too. If you wanted to just highlight these, you can Command C or Control C on a Windows, and you can literally just paste them if you wanted to. And then you have, of course, I had one there already, but that's a workaround for that too. If you wanted, these are copy paste as well, if you wanted to kind of move a little faster. So we're going to do signature for buyer two, full name for buyer two, date, signed, and then don't forget the last initial box. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to click save and close. And this is where you're going to name your template. So I'm going to just, because I have one in there already, I'm just going to put seller's property disclosure, initial it, and then the abbreviation, and then I'll put today's date, just so I know that this is the one I created during class. And then we're going to hit save and close. But you can name your template whatever you like. So there is my template. You can come here to use it. You can come here to edit it as well as copy it. So if you wanted to do other options, you can do this copy thing as well. So that's how you create your template. I'm going to go ahead and click on the photo of myself here or your initials, and I'm going to go back to rooms. And I'm going to go find the room that we were working in today, which is this one here for buyers. And remember, I'm uploading the seller's property disclosure that I downloaded from the MLS. And this will work for any seller's property disclosure that matches this specific one. Depending on the seller's property disclosure, there are some different ones out there. So you can create one for Coldwell Banker, you can create one for whatever other companies that have their own version of them. But if the listing agent uses the one from the Florida Association of Realtors, this template will work for multiple ones. So just keep that in mind. So we're going to go ahead and upload the form as if it was coming from the MLS filled out, right? We're just going to get some signed signatures from our buyers. So I hit add, and then I went to my computer, and here's a document that I've downloaded from the MLS. Uploading that. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to, that's the document there. We're going to go ahead and apply our template. In theory, you're going to select more than one document when you're putting an offer together. You're more than welcome to do that. I'm just going to select the one that I'm going to need for today's example. However, I recommend sending all the documents, preparing them first, filling them out, and sending them all at once. That way you're not bombarding your clients with a bunch of emails and them having to sign each document individually. Just makes it stressful. So just select as many as possible that are ready and send them off. So for today's example, to apply our PDF template to this seller's property disclosure, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on this document here. I'm going to click on the pen. In this part here, make sure you take your time with this part because there are specific things you have to do here to make sure that you apply your template correctly. So number one is applying the template to the document. So we're going to click on the ... here, and we're going to hit apply template. The only time this will match or this will come up is if you have a template that matches this specific document. So I'm going to hit apply template. And then we're going to go ahead and search for a template. We're going to select here. So these are the other templates that I have, but I'm going to select the one that we created with today's date and hit add selected. So now you'll see that one template has been applied. This is the step that even I forgot when I first started using these templates, and I was like, why isn't my account working? It must be broken. When you're adding the recipients, you must select from pre-tag rows. Pre-tag rows are the time that we took to put all those fields for buyer 1 or buyer 2. That's how you add those fields to this specific document. So you're going to go ahead and click pre-tag roles. And the 2 roles that we created for this specific template will pop up. In this case, we have buyer 1 and then buyer 2. I'm not going to use buyer 2 today because I only have one client, one contact on this opportunity. However, you can use more than one if you were dealing with 2 people. The cool thing is if you took the time to do everything we said today, which was create the contact, create the opportunity, and then start the transaction after selecting the checklist, your client will be listed here under recipient. So we go down here, here's Miss Ira Stark. We click here, her email's there. So all this is being fed into from Command. I'm going to go ahead and add selected. And now you have your pre-tag row of buyer 1 for your buyer. And then this is where you can type your message. Again, this is where you could have also in that other template applied that message to all your recipients, but I don't recommend doing that part of the template just because this message should be different because it's for different properties. So here's where you would just say, please review and sign, or whatever message you send your clients when you're sending them documents. And then of course your email subject, they'll also see that. But I'm going to go ahead and click on next. And now, hopefully, if I did it correctly, you'll see that it will apply all of my fields to the PDF. So now, awesome. You'll see here that, again, I added only 1 buyer, so you're only going to see buyer 1's initial field in every one of these pages. And then when we go to the last page, you're going to see only buyer 1's signature, full name, and date. If I would have selected more than 1 buyer, they would have all loaded for me. So I'm glad you guys got to see that even though I added 2 buyers to my template, I'm only using 1 for this specific example. I'm going to explain one last thing, and then we'll cut class out for today. The last thing that I'm going to explain here is you saw when I was creating my template that buyer 1 was yellow and buyer 2 was blue. That's specific. So when you're getting signatures or when your client has to fill something out, they know which person has to do what. So for instance, when you are requiring for your buyer or someone to fill something out and you're using a text field, this means that this person, this contact is responsible for this text field, right? So these text fields should only be used when you want your contact or your person to do something specific, whether that's sign, fill out, or check something off like a checklist. That's when you use these here. And if you have more than 1 buyer, just make sure your color matches that specific person and that task. If you're dealing with more than 1 person and they're filling out a text box like this one here, let's say they were filling out the date, for instance, they shouldn't because you should have done this, but this is an example. You can go here and they can then, this will not let the buyer or this contact continue until they fill this box out, wherever in the document that may be. One thing that you want to do if you're dealing with more than 1 buyer, and this is going to be a little bit of a really high thing, you want to select collaboration. When you go here and you select collaboration, it will allow any one of them, no matter the color, fill out that specific need. And when you're working with buyers or you're working with clients, there's always one person who's on the ball, good with email, and the other person can barely sign the document. That's why you want to make sure if you're sending something to your clients and it requires them, besides signing and doing their initials, if it's a document where they're filling things out or writing something out, select the field and go here and recipients can collaborate. That will allow either one of the people involved to fill out that form without causing any issues. I hope that makes sense. All right, so that's that. The last thing I'll say here is they added this not too long ago. You have right here under pre-filled tools. If you're the agent making edits to this document, let's say you're adding a check section or you're adding a check section where they have to check things off, option 1 or option B, or even here where they have to select yes, no, or do not know. If you're the agent doing that, you'll want to select from these gray ones here. This is for you as the agent, the user of DocuSign. This is not for the client to do anything with. So again, if I needed to fill something out here, like the date, and it's not something my clients are supposed to do, then I would use the gray text box. I would not use the one that matches my client, because if you send them that form to sign and that box matches the color of their color in DocuSign, it's not going to allow them to continue until they fill it out. So I hope that makes sense. So if you're doing something or editing a form, you're crossing something off like this here, and you're going to put, you're filling something out, use the gray features, not the ones that match the color of your clients. Okay. So that is that. Those are the pre-filled tools, and that's our template. So in theory, this would be ready to go, and I can then send this to my client. I'm not going to send it to them just because for today's class, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and click save and close. It's going to take me back to my room. The last thing I'll say, and then we'll wrap things up, is if you send a document or a bunch of documents to clients and you're dealing with more than one buyer or more than one seller, you're not going to receive a copy of that executed paperwork until every person you've sent it to has signed. So it'll stay under, in this case, to be completed or pending until all the parties involved sign. Then you will all receive an email once they've all signed with a copy of the PDF to your email. It'll update here as completed. And then under documents, you're going to have your original blue DocuSign forms, and then you'll have a green PDF. The label will be green. It'll say signed. That'll be the one you want to import into Command. And again, for the compliance piece, I would definitely watch the Compliance 101 course, because we cover the different color forms as well as when to use or what to use with what. I do recommend once you get signed paperwork, so once you get the PDFs here that are signed, go ahead and archive the blue forms, because it gets confusing. There's a ton of documents in here. There's a ton of duplicates. So if you archive the documents you no longer need, you can always fetch them again. If you need to look up a document that you archived by mistake, you can go here under archive documents and unarchive it. What I wouldn't do is delete it, because once you delete it, you have to go back to the document section and start from scratch. So yeah, just be careful with that. Alrighty, guys, I know I had a lot to cover. I know some of that stuff was pretty advanced, but I hope you found today's class helpful. Again, if you have any questions or need to book an appointment with me, just send me an email at mctt73@kw.com. And I hope you guys have a great day. And I will upload this class to our YouTube channel, if not later today, if not first thing Monday morning. Hope everyone has a great weekend, and talk to you soon. Bye.